Well, let's see if they can do that in game 2 then. Picks and bans are ready. We saw eUnited with 3 frontliners last time. The Athena, the Ymir, and the Osiris. Memory of Gabe didn't really have much frontline. They all wanted to be in the same position was the worst thing for that roster, I feel, for that composition they drafted. They all want to be about the same distance away. Eventually, someone's going to be the one furthest forward, and most of the time it was poor old Hurriwind.
Poor old Hurriwind, indeed. And it wasn't even necessarily him being the most far forward. It's just there was nobody to stop Benji or the rest of eUnited from running immediately to the back line, because every single time Hurriwind tried to get away, he just couldn't.
Well, this time around, Memory of Gabe going to go back to the Zeus once more. eUnited have the option for themselves as well now of where they want to go to. Sylvanas is available if they want to look to take that themselves, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the Athena play from Pain there.
Athena play was pretty on point by the general. He had the taunt cooldowns every single time and was just spamming it, which is what you really want to do. Benji trying to run it back on the Osiris.
Why not?
And I mean, if it works, why change it?
Why not? Osiris did get buffed recently, and you start to see even more competitive play because of it. In-hand cancelling, very important on Osiris, but if you can do it well, you can get even more damage out. And Snoopy gonna run back the Skadi. There is finally a change of Memory of Gabe's tactic this time round. They will have at least one frontliner in Vamana.
I like this change-up already. I don't think there was an issue in that last game with the Zeus and Skadi in particular. I think it was mostly just a lack of that frontline presence. When you don't have the peel to free cast, you're not going to look as good as the hyper carries on the side of eUnited.
Well, Vulcan going to be locked in for eUnited once more, so it's the same draft from eUnited up to now. We'll see if any final changes happen, because we did see Ymir and the Hoagie with the final 2 picks from eUnited. Memory of Gabe may give them the same comp. Do you reckon they would?
No. And that answers it right away.
Job,
they took away the Ymir and Verizial, but I mean, PandaCat still got his Huyi. He's not complaining.
True. That's true. But that means the Verizial could be playing Athena jungle right now, or we could see a different sort of setup god available. Where do you want to see that go?
Ideally, I would prefer to see the Athena stay onto PainDeViande. I don't feel as though it suits Verizial's playstyle. I would much rather see Verizial on like a Thor, potentially, here, and it wouldn't surprise me if he opted for that against Susano. I mean, there's still Fenrir on the table even, and he goes for the Ratatoskr, which is almost like Thor.
It's pretty much the same thing, in a weird way of looking at it. But I do like Memory of Gabe's draft a little bit better here. They've got Vamana and Sobek for the front line. Susano is one that will dance with the front line a lot of the time as well, going aggressive and then disengaging, then looking for waiting for his abilities to come off cooldown and repeat the process. Same thing can be said with Ratatoskr, but it's not going to be providing the same sort of sustain unless he goes tanky with that Ratatoskr that the Ymir had last game with the tankiness. Really,
the main priority here for Gabe is the fact that they're actually going to be able to permit their carries to do damage, because we didn't really see a whole lot of that coming out on the side of Gabe last game. After a certain point in time, they were just unable to. When you have so much tankiness in your face, there's nowhere for you to really go.
Now, a couple of changes in the patches mean that we do see the rise of Soulstone coming back towards the mid lane. Khaos has picked that up for himself and the Vulcan, and he's got the tiny trinket too, which is now maybe going to start seeing lifesteal coming back into play now, Taco. Bancrofts and Book of the Dead are viable options now.
I would prefer to see Bancroft's Talon, though, over the Book of the Dead, just because it's such a guaranteed power spike.
That's true. We'll see what they can do with that if he does go for that Bancroft's Talon. At the moment, just keep an eye on the position of where everybody started. eUnited have 2 members on the right-hand side. Benji and Verizial are actually in lane. Cynosure will be starting on the jungle side as well. Whalrus, not sure where he wants to go right now. He's having a good old think about it, but with Eonic being in mid lane, it looks like it'll be a 2v1 mid, 2v2 right, and 1v2 in the duo lane. Benji versus Cynosure, as you'd expect. Benji's going to invest some poke into Cynosure. Cynosure focusing on the creeps with that blue stone pendant where possible.
And eUnited getting the better trade of that clear initially, although it wasn't awful clear by Gabe, just slightly better with the Osiris.
Well, on the right-hand side as well, you can see the invade coming out from Hurriwind and Eonic after pressure and Khaos in the mid lane. They have looked towards the speed buff. Now they're looking at the blue. The Elementals being looked at by both teams right now. Not 100% sold on who really got those ones just yet. Apologies for not knowing. Verizial, though, is in a lot of trouble, though. Forced to beat. He may get away from this still, as Hurriwind does not have any more follow-up damage. No detonates available to pick up Verizial. He'll escape with his life just barely.
And that was a beautiful meatball by Khaos, preventing Eonic from having any sort of follow-up potential, which is exactly what you want to happen, considering that Verizial had to expend his beats.
Left-hand side, though, eUnited will get the left-hand Harpies there. The Oracle's still available. Snoopy has just dropped his own purple buff down that left-hand side as well, just for the safety. At least the baby creeps for the most part, to make sure he could look after them. Level 3 for both Hurriwind and Eonic in mid lane now. A small level advantage and a very nice chain lightning.
Hurriwind pretty happy to get that triple detonate going off when you have 3 lightning bolts around you. That's never a fun sign to see as a mid laner or a jungler.
Well, Viriziel was looking for the red buff invade on the left-hand side here. Sadly, Snoopy's already picked that up for Memory of Gabe. He won't be too upset, though, Viriziel, because back harpies are worth a little bit more at the moment, so stealing those away is denial of jungle from the enemy and gives you that level 3 that he was really after before he has to head back to base.
And the thing is, too, Cyno had so much more flexibility with how he played into this initial starting point. Considering that they poked out Viriziel so early on, he couldn't really afford to hang around that solo lane side anymore. He needed to just safely farm out the waves underneath the tower and mid. So because of that, I mean, Gabe are already coming out pretty on top so far.
Yeah, I do like what Snoopy did on the left-hand side as well. He started Boots and Bluestone here, knowing he was going to be in a 2v1 with Eonic starting mid lane. The mobility from the Boots will help him survive a little bit longer. But not only that, though, it's the amount of sustain he gets from those potions, Taco.
Potions are always really important for Skadi early on, considering that while she has great clear, you know, like you mentioned, in a 2v1 scenario, it's great clear isn't necessarily the best.
No, because you're still going to get pressured anyway, because there's 2 people trying to clear against you. Eonic now turns up to the duo lane to find Snoopy still at level 3, which means that we'll probably see eUnited's duo lane hit 5 before the whole duo lane of Gabe's now.
I also really like the Sobek pick. I was about to say, hold that thought, because
I like that little play from eUnited, actually, because they invested quite a bit into Eonic there for a second. Instead of going for the all-in kill, they just fall back immediately. They didn't get meditation out of Eonic, so it was very well played by Eonic as well, not to fall for that trap.
I think that's what they were trying to bait out, too, is they wanted that free active, because then it opens up Eonic the next time round that he tries to venture into that lane, immediately jump on top of him. But what I was saying is, I like the Sobek a lot more than the Sylvanas for Eonic, because not only does it allow him to be a little bit more aggressive, but it's a lot harder for Pain to just freely dash in to look for those taunts immediately, because if Eonic's fast enough and he responds with a pluck himself, Pain's going to have nowhere to go.
He'll go for a flying ride that he doesn't want to go on, that's for sure. All the tail whip can cancel out the taunt. Eonic may catch PainDeViande on the left-hand side here. The taunt was good, but the pluck back from Eonic was better. Pain's looking to charge away and will do so, but Cynosure was waiting perfectly with the jet stream to pick up the kill with the ultimate.
And already, you can see how the composition for Gabe is coming together significantly better this time around, punishing Pain immediately for being out of position.
Was he out of position? No, he was just trying to go back to his own half of the map. Was that like a wall coverage, or was that just being too far forward?
Just being way too far forward at that point in time. He should have been a little bit more cautious, considering that there's a Sobek, and Sobek flourishes pretty heavily at the early standpoints of the game.
Well, Sobek right now invading the enemy jungle on his own. There's going to be 3 members of United. Make that 4 in a second when PainDeViande turns up all around this area. Eonic recognizes that, very similar to Snoopy in game 1, and goes, no, I think I'll think better of trying to steal that one away.
There's nothing wrong with him just providing presence, though, considering that PandaCat is super low on mana. He doesn't really have a whole lot for escaping. So just in case anybody from eUnited decided not to show up.
Whalrus been a little bit aggressive in the jungle there, but he's got away with it just about. He went to proxy farm the wave coming in, and Viriziel and Benji both tried to collapse onto him, but he did escape back to safety just about. Whalrus still in a pretty decent zone right now, but in comes Viriziel with the ultimate. Immediate tail with Eonic. Makes PainDeViande. Once again, he's on that wild ride that we were talking about. He didn't want to be there. Hurriwind will get credit for the kill. And now Memory of Gabe can look to steal speed and a blue.
And it's looking like the speed buff is 100% Gabe's, as well as the blue buff. Benji isn't really going to have a whole lot of potential to contest that, especially not knowing that Gabe is still lingering around in the jungle.
It's funny that, because Whalrus was the one out of position a little bit with the collapse coming in from eUnited, knowing the speed and blue was coming up, but it worked in their favor so well when they didn't manage to get the engagement off.
But are you really out of position as a level 8 Vamana with an ultimate available?
Against an Osiris with Lord of the Afterlife?
But,
yeah.
But the thing is, Viriziel, he's Ratatoskr level 6 without Acorn even.
But
he just finished Acorn.
He had ultimate as well.
The burst potential,
you don't
though,
think it's enough?
Cyno has too much mobility on the Susano. Whalrus was safe. I think he was safe the whole way through. Wasn't really having any sort of care in the world.
I don't know. I don't agree with that one, but we'll see. Maybe it'll happen again later on. But if it happens later on, it'll be even tankier and not just have boots on the side of Whalrus, then you'll be like, see, I told you so. 6 minutes in, though, Memory of Gabe do find themselves in a much better position than game 1, looking to at least try and find a split here against eUnited, which would see Memory of Gabe end still in the same position where they are, I believe, after the game so far.
No, this time around, Gabe actually with a 2K gold lead, which is pretty important at this stage of the game, considering that we're only 6.5 minutes in and climbing timing. And I mean, that's a solid goal lead to establish for yourselves early on, especially considering that a goal for you hasn't
Snoopy's
been...
taking a fight against PandaCat, but he didn't realize Virizial was waiting too. Virizial got aggro from Caldea as PandaCat has dealt with Snoopy, which means Caldea is gone too. In the sky, Virizial is hanging around to see the rotations coming in. They don't want to bite off any more here. eUnited, they'll be happy with that pick on Snoopy.
Snoopy got a little bit too greedy right there in the dual lane. Just felt like he could go toe-to-toe with PandaCat, but the baits were pretty strong.
To be fair, PandaCat always plays like he's ready to fight anyway. It doesn't mean... you don't know if he's got someone in rotation or he's just looking to fight, and you can't really tell the difference until it's too late. You either kill him because he's gone too aggressive, or there's always a rotation coming.
As a hunter, though, you kind of just have to anticipate if somebody's playing over-aggressive. Well, the thing is, like you mentioned, PandaCat always plays aggressive, right? So if he's going to be engaging on you, a lot of times it's better to just back off. Because if you can't tell, if you're uncertain as a hunter whether or not somebody's waiting for you in the jungle, you might as well just back off.
But then you've got Caldea, man.
Better safe than sorry.
But then you're in a 2v2 because you've got Caldea, right? And Caldea...
I don't think it works
boxer,
like that.
Right? No?
I don't think it works like that when it comes to ability-based damage.
Okay, I'm just saying, like, Caldea blocks shots from the hunter, so why not take the trade?
But she doesn't block anything from Hu Yi. That's one of the advantages for Hu Yi, is that he has that massive AoE ultimate, and the ricochet, I mentioned it before in game number 1, but it goes straight through both.
That's true, that's true. And it will remove one of the life bars of Caldea, which do regen over time. Snoopy now back from his little tumble down. Virizial still camping this left-hand side of the map right now. The red buff is about to spawn from Memory of Gabe. Snoopy and Hurriwind recognize that, and they do have war coverage, so they know Virizial's around this area.
I really like this from Virizial as well, just pinning Snoopy down, not allowing him to free farm like we've seen happen so many times.
But you do that, and then you expose your own speed buff on the right-hand side, which is what Cynosure and Memory of Gabe just stole away. They won't be able to get the blue, though, with 3 members of eUnited now grouping up for it. But this just create a window for Memory of Gabe to get the oracles, or even turn their attention to the gold if they were feeling frisky.
Playing it safe there on the side of Gabe, choosing to just secure the oracles for now, because even though eUnited were on the opposite side of the map, with an Athena ultimate,
it's true.
That's always enough to buy time.
That is very true indeed. And then not only that, Khaos doesn't have to be all the way at the fight to fight that Earthshaker that could turn the fight around and even steal the gold.
And Vulcan can be... You'd be surprised how fast Vulcan can move with his passive.
I know, with one leg as well, this guy moves pretty quick. Do you know what I mean? He's got a peg leg and he moves relatively fast for the type of situation he's in. Snoopy's going to take a trade here against PandaCat, and PandaCat's in a better position with Athena coming in. This was executed to perfection from eUnited. Eonic couldn't really do much there.
Now, neither could Snoopy, and now Eonic might actually be finding himself in trouble as well. Virizial with the body blocks on the Sobek play.
But Hurriwind is now here in the back, gets a good ultimate off. Only 2 ticks onto PandaCat, however, and it's Virizial the one that will be a casualty for this play. Whalrus gets credit for that kill. Cynosure goes to the back trying to clean up the crew of eUnited on the run. He won't be able to find anyone, though, so it ends up being Snoopy for Virizial in trade.
Virizial spent so much time trying to body block Eonic from getting the escape pluck that he didn't realize just how out of position his team was, considering that they started backing up.
Yeah.
But he's still way too far forward, and that pluck underneath the tower in the late beats as well, which is really the most important part, is he lost his beat to that.
But it does seem to be the story is get PandaCat ahead right now. That seems to be what eUnited are trying to do. Get some presence on this Hou-Yi early on in the game and try and shut down a little bit of what Skadi puts out.
It seems to be working as well. I mean, he's got a 2-level lead already onto Snoopy, which is exactly where you want to be as a Hou-Yi.
And not just that, he's now finished his Transcendence as well, so he's going to be stacking earlier. The power spike for PandaCat is here. And we may actually see eUnited turn their attention to the Gold Fury now because of that.
They have plenty of AoE and objective control between the Vulcan and the Hou-Yi, so it wouldn't surprise me in the least.
We'll see what happens next, because on the left-hand side, Memory of Gabe going to be heading 2 into the jungle. There's nothing really over there to take. The left-hand Harpy's about to respawn. Hurriwind will take a trip back to base and get his helmet online, and Snoopy's doing what he needs to do right now and freeze the wave, but eUnited not going to let that happen for free. They're going to pull the gold, and Cynosure going to make sure that that isn't done for now. But eUnited, they definitely do want to fight here, Taco, and you can see that because Virizial's in the sky.
And it looks like Snoopy's the target, having to expend his beads to try and keep Virizial off of him, but it might be to no avail.
Great ricochet coming out from PandaCat, and the heat of the suns is raining down. Khaos gets credit for the kill, but PandaCat leapt all the way in. PandaCat will have to sacrifice himself to get his team out. PainDeViande is trying to ult to get away from this, but it won't be enough. Hurriwind will get credit for the kill. The stacks was just too much. 2 for 1 engagement goes the way of Memory of Gabe.
And now it looks like Gabe are actually going to be the ones looking at this gold theory as opposed to eUnited. And
I gotta admit, though, The raid boss is on his way. Osiris has arrived. Benji, though, is getting zoned out by Whalrus here. Whalrus is doing a great job of zoning, and Benji might not be here in time to steal that away. Memory of Gabe will get the Gold Fury. Unfortunately, Benji couldn't make an influence there. I thought he might have done something, you know, with the ultimate being available too, but Benji's body blocks were great there.
Now, Whalrus, this time around, he's not a Thanatos. He actually is the one with the level lead now, the 2-level lead on the Osiris. So Benji's not having anywhere near as much free reign on this Osiris like we saw from him in game number 1.
Good work from Whalrus then to rotate in and make sure that went the way of Memory of Gabe. The kills, 5-3 now. The gold lead stretches a little bit more with that Gold Fury going down to around 3,500 gold, 4,000 experience. Snoopy, go back to the lane, and he was doing this a minute ago as well, just before that Gold Fury, which is freezing the wave. We don't see this too much, Taco.
Well, the thing about freezing the wave right now is that the creeps push so evenly into the lanes that it's kind of difficult to just freeze the lane at this point in time, especially against a Hu Yi who can push up the lane as much as he likes. Snoopy just wants to ensure these last in hand because not only is he stacking, but he's just behind.
And he can't really, every time
he's
he goes
got to play
forward,
safe.
Panda looks to fight, but Pain is looking to steal away the purple. Eonic turns up at the right sort of time to try and contest that though and secure it for his team. Pain gets plugged before the dash is used, so the dash is still available here. PainDeViande will dash away, Virizial in the sky. Just showing presence there, like, hey, if you carry on chasing, we're gonna fight.
But this is great for Snoopy because now that he knows Virizial's ultimate has been used, he can start pushing outside of that tower line. Which
is what he might need to do now, but PainDeViande is still in that duo lane, so Snoopy will have to play this relatively safely on the backside. Right-hand side, you can see Whalrus is headed back to base and picked up a Frostbound Hammer to join that of the breastplate of Valor, so he's going to be slowing consistently, just like Benji will be.
Frostbound and a Sunder at that, so whatever impact Benji was having in game number 1, he might not have the same kind of free reign in game number 2. And now Portal Demon being looked at by Gabe.
PainDeViande is ulting in with Benji in tow. 2 members on the front line here for eUnited to disengage. That Khaos was expecting the full commit there. Now the Earthshaker's down. Remember, you get like, hang on a second. They wasted all that for free? Well, we'll take a fight now, knowing 3 ultimates are down. Thank you very much.
eUnited knew. As soon as Khaos's ultimate just landed onto a reset Portal Demon,
it was K.
They just backed off. I mean, there's nothing else you can do because that's your biggest contesting factor at this stage. And when you just see that ultimate just land in the middle of nowhere, it feels Batman all around.
And that allows Memory of Gabe to get that Portal Demon, not necessarily for the positional advantage of going back to base and through it again, but it will allow them just to extend the golden experience lead. Like this tier 1 tower on the right side will also do. Whalrus still 2 levels up on Benji, the biggest lead at the moment in the game.
And probably one of the more important leads in the game, considering that this time around, Whalrus, he's trying to bounce back from that initial game that he had on the Thanatos. He is not someone who is ever going to be happy having a performance where he just doesn't get to be impactful. And this time around,
he wasn't impactful last game, let's be honest. It wasn't necessarily his play, it was more the Thanatos pick against the fact that Osiris
it's a 180 though.
There's nothing you can do.
It's a complete 180 here, and now he's the one. He's just happily slapboxing away Benji and finding the better end of it as well.
With a Frostbound Hammer, he's got a whole item lead over Benji now. Benji needs some help in this lane because Whalrus doesn't really want to give up if he can help it on chasing. Knowing how deep he is, though, he will fall back after clearing the wave. The speed taken by eUnited before the grouping of Memory of Gabe looked to steal it. They could have pressured tier 1 in mid there. They went for the speed buff invade. They won't find it.
Well, actually, Gabe were able to find that speed buff steal.
Oh, my bad. I did not see that.
It was really unfortunate for Virizial, but they actually managed to...
No, they didn't. See, you don't know what you're talking about.
Don't
know what you're talking about. Khaos just picked it up.
I'm in reverse.
Listen, trust me, we all get them wrong. It's okay. The community seem to think it's the easiest thing in the world to do. Trust me. Try casting live every single buff that goes down.
I'm so used to seeing blue and blue.
Yep. It's not always the case. But speed buff given to Khaos here. Now that's an interesting one. I guess it's because Virizial picked up the red more than anything else is the only reason they've given it to Khaos? Or do they want Khaos to have more mobility here, Taco?
We've actually been seeing this a lot from North American mids, predominantly with Soar and Andasur, where they've been opting to actually give their mid laner the speed buff.
Hang on, but that's Andasur, and he used to be a jungler, and he's still in that mindset of speed is king, right?
It counts. It counts because you want your mid to survive.
Right.
And survivability being such an important aspect of the game, especially on a Vulcan. Of all characters, like, he already has a decent speed buff himself because of his passive.
Yep.
So you could combine an actual speed buff on top of that, and he's quite a nuisance to deal with.
What do you think about Fatalis on him as well?
Please no.
Why not?
Just don't.
Just think about it, because it gives him penetration, which is something you want.
No.
And because of his movement speed from his passive, combined with a Fatalis auto attack that you
No.
want to weave in between abilities. Why are you saying no to me all the time?
Why? Why do you want me to say yes to that?
I don't know. I just wanted to talk about some nonsense, because the other casters do, but they all talk about food, and I'm not going down that track.
Almonds.
No. 5-3. Less than 17 minutes in this game. Memory of Gabe are up in this one, but it's not over by a long stretch right now with how these two compositions have been formed. As the game goes on, the team fighting potential from eUnited does become stronger if they can get their front line in order and set up Khaos and PandaCat to carry them with the damage.
But even with eUnited still having a strong team fight potential, you have to say the same thing for Gabe. And if anything, I would say that Gabe actually has the better team fight aspect, because now Hurriwind has the protection that he needs to do what Zeus does best, and that is control the map.
Well, currently is destroy the Gold Fury. Virizial in the sky, going to be very late to this, but looking to steal it away. The Earthshaker will zone Memory of Gabe away. The Gold Fury is going to go down. Goes the way of eUnited, but the fight a different story. Virizial's already dead. Cynosure contesting against Khaos, who's doing very well with the meatballs to get himself away. The speed buff is getting him moving, but he can't escape Caldeir. Oh, the detonate from Hurriwind. Eonic on the front line is very, very weak, forced to fall back to his team as Snoopy cleans up a kill on the back. Great fight for Memory of Gabe. They pick up 3 kills, but they do lose the Gold Fury there, Taco.
But they still have a 4K lead over eUnited, so it still probably falls into favor of Gabe just because of the fact that they have all of their team members still available. And on top of that, you can just see how well Gabe is able to just swarm down onto targets during that team fight. Just absolutely chaos on the side of eUnited, where nobody was really certain which way to run, and half the time they couldn't even control which way they were running because of the Skadi.
Because of the Skadi and the Permafrost. Well, you talk about a swarm. The swarm of Memory of Gabe is going to go straight for the Fire Giant here. Snoopy did not tank that very well at all. They'll be very upset members in the community right now that forced that. But the Fire Giant is getting low. Here comes eUnited to contest. Virizial's the first on the scene, joined by Benji, looking to steal away the Fire Giant, but it's not going to happen. Memory of Gabe secure it. Hurriwind forced to beat. The Tether will be pulled away from him thanks to the work of Eonic. Hurriwind still under pressure, but Snoopy's damage to the backside stops Virizial getting involved. Hurriwind finally falls down thanks to Benji forcing to ult there. They did get the Fire Giant buff off Hurriwind. Was that worth it?
Hurriwind's having flashbacks from game number 1 right now
Get
with how
away
hard
from me.
eUnited just committed to him. Just no care in the world. eUnited were just 100% set on killing Hurriwind, and honestly, that's pretty worth it. I mean, not only are you losing your Zeus, but you're losing a Zeus with Fire Giant buff, and sure, Virizial traded out his life for it, but they got both of both of Hurriwind's actives, or the Aegis was already expended at this point in time, so at least he'll have that available to him whenever he respawns, but losing beads against an Athena composition is never a fun time.
That's true. And if you actually look at what Hurriwind's done in terms of damage right now on the left-hand side of your screen, he is top of the damage chart. So removing Hurriwind from the fights will slow Memory of Gabe's advance down with this Fire Giant buff until he respawns. Then they can start to group up again. And I guess eUnited will probably invest into Hurriwind one more time, knowing those relics should still be on cooldown.
It looks like Gabe are going to want to swing from mid to either left or right side, just knock out every single tower that's still remaining on the map. And with the Fire Giant buff, that's really what you should be doing with this first round of Fire Giant buff. If you get the picks, sure, maybe look to pressure a Phoenix, but just opening up that map pressure entirely for your team is really important.
Tell you what, PandaCat got lucky seeing that ward get placed down the left-hand side. He will get some nice damage off into Eonic, who's in a bit of an awkward spot. Stun didn't last long enough from the Ricochet mark of the Crow combo for PainDeViande to find that taunt, thought Eonic could escape. Now Memory of Gabe can start to group on this left-hand side.
It's actually interesting because I just realized Eonic's only level 13, so even though he's got the Fire Giant and a couple of items online, he's really not that tanky at this point in time.
Not just yet. It's all on Whalrus for the tankiness of this team. Level 19, highest in the game. The closest opposition to him is Benji at 17 right now, and that means the Squishies are very vulnerable to a Vamana who has that Frostbound Hammer if he so chooses to go aggressive.
But wow, that tower shred.
Yep. That's what you get against a Fire Giant team. The Fire Giant buff will remain on for a few more seconds. It's not going to be up much longer, I want to say. About another minute, I'd give it. For now, it will give him a chance for one more engage. Virizial hanging around at the back on the Ratatoskr, looking to initiate the moment. Pain finds a taunt.
And Virizial, he wants it. He's ready to go in with the Ratatoskr.
Hits 3 at the backside as well, but it ages most of the damage. Cynosure can ages nothing, no! He has to use his ult defensively. He'll escape for now. Different story from Hurriwind, my friend. He's going to fall down already. eUnited now trying to turn tail have to find in the pick they were after. Benji will fall down to Eonic, though, with a very good lurking in the waters. Eonic is on zone duty right now, surrounded by 3. Whalrus comes in, and Whalrus going to force PandaCat out. And now with Cynosure coming back in with the rallying ritual, it allows him to go straight to PandaCat and look for the cleanup crew. Panda's a couple more hits from death, but Cynosure's taking a Phoenix, and Snoopy gets the double Calder, and the in-hands come into play.
The ricochet just going perfectly triangle over Cynosure. You could see that he was clenching, but he's going to fall anyway, but so's the Phoenix.
And there's goes the Phoenix on the left-hand side. Rallying Ritual was used there at the end by Eonic to get back in that fight.
That was such a beautiful disengage and then re-engage by Gabe. Whalrus buying enough time for his team to respond with those rallying rituals, and that's really all that you needed.
Yeah, for me, it's the difference between the frontliners of both Game 1 and Game 2. eUnited Game 1, their frontline was amazing. Game 2, Memory of Gabe's frontline, look at it. 4-0-7 on Whalrus, and then in the support role, Eonic 1-0-10. Neither of the frontline members of Memory of Gabe have died this game.
100% all the way, and that's exactly what you want from the Vamana pick. He picked that solely to control Benji this time around and be the, hey, I'm going to be the one jumping in your face the entire time. Hurriwind still getting a little abused in the back line there, but that's mostly due to eUnited just...
Tactical freedom now. That's what we can call it.
They're selfish at this point in time. They just want to eliminate that Zeus, just take him completely off the playing field, and sure, they're killing him, but at the same time, the rest of their team is dying too.
It's very, very true indeed. Quick pause coming out here during this set between Memory of Gabe and eUnited. Very important for both these two teams. Memory of Gabe, though, looking to try and force this to be a split, especially after getting that left-hand Phoenix just there.
And it's looking like it's lining up to be a split for the side of Gabe. I mean, they've got a pretty hefty gold lead at this point in time. Gold Fury is only going to extend it. And on top of that, the builds. There is a pretty noticeable difference in builds coming mostly between the supports, which means Gabe are going to have a little bit more frontline presence than eUnited for these next couple of engagements. Yeah,
this time round, it looks like the frontline of eUnited haven't done as well as the Game 1, and that's the thing about picks and bans after a single game, is that you're trying to adjust for Game 2. eUnited were like, well, nothing was really broken that last game, so let's not try and change it up too much. But Memory of Gabe have really adapted with the second game of what they needed to focus on, and they've made sure that Athena, PainDeViande, hasn't been involved, and neither has Viriziel.
And that's the biggest difference between Game number 1 and this game right here is PainDeViande has had no freedom whatsoever. He can't just dash in willy-nilly now on the Athena because he just gets punished for it every single time by Eonic or Whalrus, and that's exactly what needed to be happening. And on top of that, the banning stage for Gabe prior to this game starting, where they took away that Emir option from Viriziel, that loss of another frontline engage was actually super detrimental to eUnited's draft here.
Well, Memory of Gabe very confident right now with how this game is going. They're 9,000 gold up, so they're sitting up around the Fire Giant now, looking for a fight. They've got plenty of war coverage down, Sentry Wards too, just to deny United knowing exactly anything without having to get eyeball vision onto the situation. Meanwhile, while this is all going on, Sacco, the left-hand side is pushing with fire minions.
And those fire creeps are going to start wailing onto that Titan.
3, Viriziel Earthshaker onto Hurriwind, but it gets Aegis and avoided. Eonic took a lot of poke in the front, PainDeViande meditates himself to heal himself back up. Still being invested on, but Viriziel gets blown up by Whalrus, and a combination of him and Cynosure. Cynosure gets the second kill as Benji now falls down once again. 2 members of the front line are dead. Whalrus on the back looking towards Khaos once again, slowing him down. They don't want to dive too deep though, Memory of Gabe right now. They're happy to fall back towards the Fire Giant and towards the Portal Demon.
Might as well pick up that Portal Demon. That way, those who are low can just come back in, looking at Eonic in particular, and the rest of the team as well. If they're winning a team fight, you might as well spend some of the gold. I mean, you've got the freedom with the Portal Demon being available, and eUnited, I don't think they're going to be able to really contest this Fire Giant. Not with those fire creeps flooding into the base on the left-hand side of the map, and then on top of that, everything's been expended.
I like the call from Memory of Gabe to send the whole team back there, knowing eUnited couldn't really do anything to the Fire Giant themselves. They also managed to get a lot more wards, which allows them to either continue a fight at the Fire Giant if we see rotations from eUnited looking to defend, but more importantly, what they can do as well is start to immediately siege and place these wards down, looking to close the game out.
And it's looking great for Gabe. This time around, though, Hurriwind is going to have to play it incredibly safe and just hug that backline as hard as possible, with both of his actives being unavailable for a little bit more than a minute. I mean, we've seen eUnited be more than happy to dive him already. It wouldn't surprise me if they chose to try and do it again.
Not being funny though, this gauntlet is shaping up to be crazy when the gauntlet land happens in a couple of weeks' times, because all these teams are so close. With best of twos in the regular season, that's not the case in the gauntlet. One team has to win. They will be best of threes minimum to make sure they can try and get themselves through to Masters. But you can't call who would win them right now with how this season's been.
Not at all. North America has been pretty cutthroat so far, and I mean, that just makes it all the more exciting as far as the split is concerned. I can't wait to see how this gauntlet is going to line up.
Well, I can't wait to see if Memory of Gabe can close this game out. Virizial's already in here, like swimwear to the back line. Looking to deal damage, but he's already dead. Snoopy picks him up. Pain's dead too. Whalrus gets credit for that kill, and Whalrus goes straight to the back line. In the big baby form, he'll be able to regen a little bit more. There's a meditation as well. Memory of Gabe feeling pretty confident now, knowing this is a weakened Phoenix.
That Phoenix is going to fall almost immediately to Snoopy. Stands absolutely no chance with the full penetration build online for the Skadi. And now mid-Phoenix is going to be the next target.
Definitely going to chip down very, very quickly here with the amount of in-handers and Whalrus and Cynosure whacking away in at 2, as well as 5 members with the Fire Giant buff. It does increase the damage. They all do to structures as well. Final tier 2 remaining on the right-hand side now for eUnited. To defend, I don't think they're going to try to.
You kind of just forget that T2's been hanging out with how much pressure that they've been placing onto the mid and left Phoenixes this entire time. You just, oh yeah, by the way, this is still up.
Yeah, that happens sometimes when these games go on so long where they're fighting Phoenixes and you're like, oh, let's get the final Phoenix. Wait a second, we can't hit it yet because the tier 1 and tier 2 are still up on the other side. This time around though, Memory of Gabe going to head back to base, finish off a couple more items. Nemean line picked up there by Eonic as well. You can see as Whalrus has also picked up the Mantle of Discord, I should say. So an extra stun and a little bit more protection on the front side.
You know what's incredible, though?
Me.
No.
Okay.
Gabe...
I just put it out there. I might have been right.
I had to let it... I had to sit on that one for a second to make sure that there wasn't any way you could possibly murder me right afterwards.
I would never murder you. That's rude. I'm not abusive. I am not an abusive person. I'm a nice person. People just get me wrong.
That's what they all say.
You just get me wrong. That's what it is.
but no, back to what I was talking about, though.
You were talking about something?
Gabe actually had a 15k gold lead, but look at the mid laners. The only point in this game where the XP lead isn't one way or the other or anything massive separating factor, it's actually Khaos has been hanging with Hurriwind.
That's true.
Just fine.
Well, we've got to keep an eye on Khaos then, because he could turn this fight in a single Earthshaker if it's at the right time. There's a lot of agency on the side of that Memory of Gabe. Virizial once again initiates the fight. The Earthshaker hits, but it was on the front line, and it wasn't a whole lot of damage to absorb. PainDeViande is dead yet again. That's his 7th death of the game. The Phoenix now being assaulted down by Memory of Gabe. Yes, PandaCat got off to a good start this game, but it doesn't look like eUnited can weather the storm that is Memory of Gabe and those ice fields coming out from Snoopy. The wind from Cynosure is just too strong as well. And then add to the mix a bit of lightning. Very, very frightening from Hurriwind. 21-6 at the end of the game. Memory of Gabe make the split.
And again, nothing wrong with the Skadi and Zeus picks. It didn't work out for them in game number 1, but that's not because of the gods.
Oh, yeah.
That's because there was no front line, but same cannot be said this go-round. Whalrus was absolutely complete 180 turnaround.
Yeah, fantastic work from Whalrus and the whole team. PandaCat had a great game, though, there, to be fair. He was on the whole year. It got going early on to the United, but it wasn't enough.
Too much emphasis on that Hu Yi early on, and Virizial just unable to really have a huge snowballing impact like we saw from him in game number 1, and he kept losing his jungle because of it.
It's a split. Let's head over to the analysts to get their take on how that set went.
Thanks a lot, Hindu Man. Standing by. Myself and Toli. We've got it covered as far as this match is concerned. Nice little split we saw right there. Really, everybody came out to play.
Absolutely. This split now puts eUnited at 12 points. They're tied currently with Luminosity, and it's also going to be a split head-to-head record. But if Luminosity, they lose both games, they're going to be tied. All they need to do is win one game in this next upcoming set against Eager in order to avoid that tiebreaker.
Which isn't as easy as that sounds. One game sounds really simple, but when it comes down to, Eager has been very successful this season throughout the entirety of the split, in all honesty. Almost as successful as we saw eUnited turn up in game number 1. By 20 minutes, there was already 7 kills on PandaCat, and that was incredible. Just him alone. The rest of the team also doing work.
This is what you want to do as a Hu Yi. Despite struggling a little bit in the earlier phases of the first game, PandaCat was able to make a big important factor for his teammates, ricocheting off the walls repeatedly, relying on Virizial, playing this jungle Ymir, which hasn't been seen very often here, banking off of that wall in great succession.
Yeah, it's really, as I said, I mean, the hunter right here, PandaCat, this is what he does, and not really too big of a surprise to see him turn up here in game number 1. Although, you know what, maybe I'll check myself. I think that had this been Season 2 or Season 3 even, you could say not a surprise to see PandaCat doing this. But towards the end of the season, we've seen eUnited really pick it up. But throughout the course of the split, has not been this same story.
No, not at all. Ever since his vacation, I would say, in Season 3, Enemy and the rest of his team back then known as kind of struggled a little bit, but now ever since Benji kind of came on board, eUnited has been looking a little bit more solid. You know, they did win this first game in a pretty good fashion.
Yeah, I mean, that's I've said it a number of times, both here and other places, that bringing Benji back to the squad of Khaos and PandaCat and, of course, Mr. Pain himself, very important point there to bring him back into the squad, and that allowed them to really find and bottle this win. And bottle is exactly what they need to do. They need to take what they did in game number 1 and look towards the future as a unit. Of course, not making the top 2. They will be battling it out through the gauntlet.
Yep.
And the way they bottle it in game number 1, they got to bring that to the summer because they didn't bring it in game number 2. In Memory of Gabe, certainly did it. What is usually an inconsistent team winds up splitting. What a surprise there. But their performance in game 2 was off the wall.
And specifically from their jungler, Cynosure was doing great work playing the Susano, making his impact known at every stage of the game. And this is really what you want out of your jungler, to be able to dictate the pace of the game. And not only that, because of the presence that Cynosure had and the momentum that he established for his teammates, it gave a lot of leeway and safety for Hurriwind playing the Zeus to do basically Zeus things.
Yeah, and that's really the key. Is Z-Man came out and absolutely ran the show, put on light shows, and, you know, frankly, just running things. So much damage coming out of the mid lane. And you can see what I love about all these clips here is that we're not seeing Zeus, the game from Zeus's perspective. But what we are seeing is Cynosure go in and fight into that Zeus ultimate that Hurriwind has already put down. This allows his team to really battle wherever they want in that area and drag players back into it with some of those selections of Susano and some of the, so that you allow the player, the mid lane Zeus, to really do, like you said, whatever he really wants to.
And this is going to allow now, in Memory of Gabe, to get 1 extra point. This doesn't really do too much for them here with this split. They're still going to be underneath Sword, that's currently sitting at 10 points.
Yeah, very strong stuff coming out here, and very strong stuff coming out from In Memory of Gabe. And, I mean, honestly, we just covered him. Hurriwind in the middle lane is going to be joining us. He's your mid laner for In Memory of Gabe. And, Hurriwind, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I thought I'm doing good. How about yourself, man?
I'm doing good. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Hurriwind and I are pretty good friends out of the whole world of Smite. It's nice to talk to him one more time. And we haven't really caught up in a while. And it's been a long spring split for you guys. I think In Memory of Gabe on paper was supposed to be, and kind of wound up being, a real super team. What's it like being part of one of these high expectation rosters?
Well, to be honest, I'm pretty surprised with how the team was formed and how the players ended up on the team that anyone would call us a super team. But I think we've kind of struggled to find our stride, but when we're doing it right, we're doing it really right.
Why don't you give us a little bit of insight? You said it's kind of a fun, you said it's kind of a story, or you weren't expecting the players to wind up like that. So how did everybody come together? You've got a console player, you've got players like you, and then, you know, superstars like Snoopy. How did everybody come together?
Well, to be honest, at least for myself, I wasn't quite sure where I was going to end up, and I've always been good friends with Eonic and Snoopy, who were putting together a roster, and they were just sort of picking the best of what they could that was left after the other teams that I would have previously called the super team. So we kind of just made what we made it work how we could, I guess.
Well, you guys absolutely have made it work. Looking really strong out there. And you personally, Hurriwind, I want to ask you, you've gone through a lot of changes, you know, both publicly and privately as far as your career is concerned here in the mid lane. And I think personally, I think that you're one of the best mid laners in the entire world, and you've had a lot of detractors. What do you have to say about the people that haven't really had faith in you now here getting a chance to prove it?
Well, I think I'm some ways away from being able to tell them that they were wrong. I think I've still got a lot to work on. I appreciate the compliment, but I've still got a lot of things I need to iron out in my play and my picks and how I shot call and think about the game.
You know, I'm kind of glad you said that. I think that's part of what makes Hurriwind, having that fuel, you know, wanting to be that guy. I think that's a lot of fun, and I think it's helped, you know, you and your team really become very successful.
What have you learned between yourself individually and along with your teammates from the beginning of the split till the end where we currently stand?
Well, that's actually a really interesting question, Tully, because you know, you know all the other players in the scene, but you don't really get to know them. You don't really get to understand their strengths and their flaws until you actually play with them every day. So I think playing with players like Whalrus, who were on a weaker team before, who was more or less a superstar on that team, Cynosure is an Xbox player, and Snoopy and Eonic used to be, and I still think are the best players in their respective roles in the world. You get to learn, you know, what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, and you get to learn how they like to play the game, and you kind of have to put everyone together and figure out how to make it work.
You guys are certainly doing that. As you guys go forward, looking towards the summer split, I real quick, I hope there are any talks about roster changes for you guys?
No, absolutely
yeah,
not.
I didn't think so. I just want to get that question out of the way. But so looking towards the summer split, what are the things that you guys are looking looking forward towards the summer split? Are you guys looking to change things up, really stick to the same, and just lab out what you guys have been doing, or is there going to be a different step forward for In Memory of Gabe?
Well, just in short, I think that we struggled to find sort of our identity as a team and like what kind of compositions we like to run, and figuring out who's good at what and how we can make people's god pools work in the meta. But I think going towards the summer, that hasn't really been something we've been looking at yet, because we have the LAN coming up, and that's where all of our focus has been. And I imagine we'll probably look more towards the summer after that's over.
Sweet. I actually have one more question I forgot to ask you before I let you go. Cynosure has been an excellent addition, not only to your team, but to the Smite Pro League. What's it like? Were there any struggles? What's it like bringing a console player onto your team in the Pro League?
I think there's something to be said for having, especially a lot of the pro players have low expectations and don't expect much out of people, their names they don't know. But I think that Cynosure is a good example of someone that if you give them a chance and you put them up on the stage and you put them in the limelight, that they can be a lot more than you think they can be.
Have you noticed any gameplay differences or meta approaches different from you four PC veterans and the console player Cynosure?
I think at first there were some things that he didn't really think about in terms of how to play leads and composition-wise. That was sort of hard for him to overcome at the start, but I think he ironed it out in about a week or two and figured out how we play the game in comparison to how he was playing on Xbox and how he was playing on PC before.
Awesome. Well, it seems to have worked out, as I said before, and congratulations on your, well, one-game win. Split is a little bit bittersweet, but glad you came up with at least one W. Before I let you go, Hurriwind, though, is there anything you'd like to say to the people at home?
Just so all the people who are out there still supporting us. I know it's been kind of a rough season for us, and hopefully as we move forward and hopefully as we pick up an org, everyone can kind of get behind us and find some way to root for us, even though we've been so inconsistent.
Thanks a lot, Hurriwind. That's the mid laner Hurriwind for In Memory of Gabe. Being a little modest there, although, like I said, in typical Hurriwind fashion, very modest, very downplaying a lot of what him and his team have been able to do. Inconsistent, I think, has been the word that a lot of people are using for In Memory of Gabe, but even in those losses, they look like a strong team.
He's definitely evolved throughout the years, you know, ever since he was a sixth man member during Cloud9 way back in Season 2 to now where he stands with In Memory of Gabe. He's made a lot of improvements and necessary adjustments, not just himself, but the people that he surrounded himself alongside. So now heading into the gauntlet right underneath Soar should put himself and his team in a pretty comfortable position in terms of learning from this experience moving forward to that summer split you've been talking about.
And I think that there's a lot, you know, there is some to be learned from In Memory of Gabe for them specifically, but I think it's also, there was a lot of success there for this team. We absolutely have to acknowledge the fact that In Memory of Gabe played better than, I think there were two super teams that came into the split. And while neither of them really wind up being truly super, I think in Memory of Gabe absolutely wound up being the better of those two. So Hurriwind over there in the mid lane looking nice on the Zeus and everything. But as we come